Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Thursday night American Scouser podcast. I am Gally, filling in for Maka. On my last fill-in show for a little bit, the big guy will be back drinking his gin, talking in a language that half the people don't understand at this time next Thursday night, and we can't wait to have him back. But until then, I am joined by, as always on a Thursday night, from Rhode Island, Trevor Utley. How are we doing, my friend?
Pageant waves for everybody. How we doing? Doing good.
And broadcasting from his backyard, somewhere near a smoke pit, Brian.
Yep. Howdy.
What's happening out there, Brian, right now? Really, you're outside. What's the weather like? I mean, we completely overemphasize the weather on the American Scouser podcast, so I just had a show without starting that way.
All right, so I just had a passing shower come through, but so the humidity is cranked back up again right now. So yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Beautiful. So we're gonna get right at it, guys, and we are gonna start. And I always joke that we're going to start with trivia, and then I say, no, we're not, because that would ruin a show. But tonight, I'm going to see if you guys can ruin a show with trivia. Yep, actual trivia. And this was not sent in by a listener. This was found by me, which means it's probably wrong. Liverpool's record versus Bournemouth overall. Now, granted, it is not a lot of fixtures. It's 19 total fixtures. So we're going to see if you can do Bickler math. Trevor, we're going to start with you because you're on every week.
All right.
Give me Liverpool's wins, draws, and Bournemouth losses, equaling 19, please.
All right. I'm going to, because I know there was the loss last year. Quick. And
Matus is saying 16-4-1. Now he's given a second answer, which always makes me creeped out because he's on the Google machine. I'm gonna shut this thing off if the comments off. Come on, Trevor.
15-3-1.
15-3-1. Well played. Brian?
13-4-2.
13-4-2. Neither of you are correct, which does not shock me because you are guests and contributors on an American Scouser podcast, and they do not normally get trivia right. Liverpool, believe it or not, is 14 wins, 3 draws, 2 losses. So I'm going to say this to Facebook user. There is a setting where you actually can indicate on LFC America that you want your name to be shown because we can't see it otherwise. But I'll give you credit. You got it right. The 2 losses, obviously, tough ones. Last year, obviously, the 2-1 loss on the road at Bournemouth, which really was a killer in us making Champions League. And then, of course, the epic comeback that they had with Karius in goal in the calamity when they came back from down 3-1 in the second half and won 4-3 years ago when we were wearing those awful yellow uniforms. Someone put a highlighter on them. So I'm going to give you guys a chance to reprieve yourself and just show that I like to ruin a show like Timuchin and ask a second trivia question. Who has the most goals against Bournemouth in the history of Liverpool Football Club? And how many?
Ooh. Oh, man. That's all right. So, okay. Now, I'll let Brian go first this time.
Wow.
I'll give you the privilege.
I would say, guess out there, Salah with 4. I don't know.
All right. Since I know he didn't get on the score sheet last year, but he did have. Yeah, I'm gonna say. I'm gonna just change from Alex just a little. I'm gonna say Bobby with 8.
The answer is Mo with 8, and it's not a question. Oh. It is the result. I guess unless you're giving it to Trebek, and then he would say, what is or who is the all-time leading scorer against Bournemouth? It is Mo Salah, 8 goals. The most miraculous part is he did not score last year in the 9-0 drubbing. But he has scored in, I believe, 5 out of the 8 matches he's played against Bournemouth in his career. So, For anyone who is going to be tuning in a little later to the fantasy show, you might hear why Mo Salah might be the right pick to pick as captain this week. So, going to tell you right now, that's a little plug. We'll be doing the fantasy show, myself and the Polish Prince, who got the trivia question correct. We'll be doing that show starting up at 9 p.m. tonight, 8 Central, right after this program. If you're not already in our Discord channel arguing about things like fantasy soccer, transfers, LFC women, the youth teams, etc., why not? Get in there. We'll drop a link later in the program inside the chat. Click on the link. Join in if you're already in Discord. Get in the action. If you don't have anyone to watch the match with this Saturday, I promise it will be an entertaining time seeing all of us argue about basically ridiculous results. And while we're at it, we might as well tell everyone they do need to smash that like button. If Paul Bickler was here right now, I wouldn't be wearing sleeves and I have a lot of tattoos. I'd be yelling about smashing that like button. So please hit the like button, share this, bring other viewers into it. Go to our YouTube page, subscribe to the channel today, get all your new content. We really appreciate all of the support. Speaking of things that needed support, it was basically me as soon as the match ended on Sunday. It was a frustrating result for me personally. I thought Liverpool was the better side in the first half. I thought we were thoroughly outplayed in the second and probably were lucky to escape with a point. So a 1-1 draw with a broken goal scored by a defender, a second goal scored by another defender, chalked off for offside. Obviously, Mo had his taken off, and Diaz had the nice run, leading to the goal and a really nice build-up play. Before we talk about the actual performance in itself, what were your overall takes on the lineup and how Liverpool went about playing at Stamford Bridge on Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, it was the old cliche, the tale of two halves. That first half there was just back and forth, tons of chances for both sides, and there was just a lot of entertainment, both good and bad. And then the second half happened, and all of that joy was flushed down the toilet. And that is the frustrating part against facing Chelsea more than anything. But if you listen to the pre-show going into that match, a lot of us had a feeling that there was going to be defensive frailties on both sides. And while they were not the greatest, they were something where everybody just kind of shut things down in the second half.
So, Brian, what about you? When you saw the starting lineup, what was your first initial reaction?
McAllister as a number 6. It was is that the right spot for him? And I knew that was going to be I knew that was going to set everything up to be pretty messy. And I really think the left side right there was the problem.
Yeah, I we're getting a real echo, right? Are you guys getting an echo?
I think that may be me. I'm trying to figure it out. I've gotten all of the set put together as it's supposed to, and it's. Let me see if I can procure some headphones in a little bit. But yeah, that's definitely me at this point. Hold on, uno momento.
All right, sorry about that, Brian. We're going to pull Trev out for a minute here while he works things out there. Sorry to everyone who was listening that was getting that echo as soon as we realized it was happening on air. I thought it was actually happening in my headset, but that's what happens with the production on live TV.
Okay, so, well, I was the same right there. McAllister right there was not in a natural position that he should have played in right there. I felt that he should have been a more forward placed midfielder, but I still had but I guess we run into the whole problem is who's going to play number 6? And I mean, he did the best he could until he got kind of overran by the Chelsea field. But again, my serious problem I had was that left side. The left side was tragic. Was really tragic to me.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think that the biggest piece there was the trouble in between having too much overrun on that left side. And I think putting Gakpo in the midfield, I think we had a disagreement on Monday night where we felt that he did a real good job there. I think on some levels he was solid. And I think on others, it was really tough kind of sledding for him because I think he was asked to go back and play defensively, and it's just not natural. He presses forward so well from the front. And I just think that he really had to work a little harder on the defensive end and put Robo out, but Robo really played terribly in the first half, right? But what were your overall opinions, Trevor, on McAllister and how he integrated in the side in his first match?
Yeah, I think the way his game went I think the headphones have made it worse. I don't know. But yeah, long story short, McAllister, I think, was a guy that was trying to find his footing in many ways. And yeah, I gotta take off. I'm sorry. I don't know what is happening. My apologies. I'll be in the chat.
We'll try to figure it out, Trevor. Sorry about that. Brian, how about you on McAllister?
I mean, I thought McAllister was okay, but the problem was that there is his natural. He was in a very unnatural position, and I think that we utilized McAllister for what his abilities were. I mean, as being an attacking midfielder. So I think that was at a disadvantage for him. I mean, so that's pretty much my biggest opinion about him. I think we could have swapped him out in that with somebody else in there. I wish that Bajatek was actually healthy. I think that would have solved a lot of the number 6 problems.
Yeah, I think the overall problem that I've seen so far with having McAllister so deep is he wants to create the last pass forward. And to make that last pass forward, he really needs to be able to be further up the pitch. And I think he was still doing that at times, which even put him out of position. He didn't mean to, but it's not natural for him to be playing in the 6. I think what really stuck out to me was how well Mo seemed to be in just full fine form in that first half. The pass to Diaz was great. The run in itself. When we go up 1-0 and then Mo has the chance and we think it's in, do you believe that game's over at that point?
Oh, absolutely. I think that would have been a confidence booster for us, and I also think that would have caused them to go on the back foot for the rest of the match. Yeah, I think that with Mo would have scored that would have been we probably would have ran off like at least 3-0.
That was really where I was. I thought it would be like a 3-4-0 win. And I really just kind of bounced off of it and was like, this doesn't make sense to me, because the way that they responded from that point, starting to get forward, obviously they get the breakthrough and they score the goal. After they score the goal, they really go on the front foot, and Chilwell has the nice goal chalked off for being offsides. Thank goodness, because we really didn't sniff the net too much after that until, of course, this moment.
Yeah.
And, it splits opinions. So I'll ask you.
That's not a natural position of your hands.
And that's my whole argument. I know it's inside the silhouette. Timuchin argued that he thought that it would be something that he would question as far as whether if it was called against us, we would be very frustrated about it. So again, I pose the question back to you. Is it that VAR thought that Anthony Taylor had a good look, Or do you think they just absolutely missed asking him to even come over and take a peek at the monitor? Because it was clear to me in real time, that it was a handball.
Yes, I think we had another weekend of Bar showing its ugly head again. I think that they basically didn't look at it well enough, in my opinion. I mean, we saw a bunch of different results in say for instance the Wolves match with Manchester United. I mean, same thing. We're more VAR mess.
I totally agree. I think this was a handball. I would have called it a handball. And I also would have, at least asked for someone to go check the monitor, because it just seems to me that that's a clear and obvious error to the point that they should take a look. If he still said, no, I see it, it's inside his chest, it just seems like it was just an absolute mistake. Alan chimes in. Liverpool played like chopped liver late in the first half and part of the first half. I'm wondering if he meant in part of the second half. And of course, Taylor kissed the ass of the United fans. I know we love this idea that Anthony Taylor is a big United guy. I feel like no matter when Anthony Taylor is refereeing one of our matches, we either make him a United fan, a City fan. I personally think that Anthony Taylor is one of these guys that likes to be a little bit of a hardo on the pitch, and I think the other referees know that. They respect him, and I think in that instance, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a little communication. He said, I saw it, and the VAR official just said, okay, we'll let it go.
But then it also goes back to I'd love to see a stat of how many times an official in the Premier League has gone to the monitor and actually looked at the calls that they were making. It's got to be extremely low. I mean, I can only think of maybe a handful at the most over the past season.
Yeah. So as the second half went on and we made the substitutions, we changed up the match a little bit. I don't know that it was for the best. Obviously, we brought in Jones, we brought in Elliott, brought on Darwin, brought on Ben Doak. Ben Doak was obviously a big talking point with the fact that he was being brought on for Mo in a tie match. Are you taking off Mo for an unproven 19-year-old
Nope.
or 17-year-old at this point of his career?
No, not at all. Actually, really, I mean, I thought that was a really bad call on that. I would have left Mo there, but even equally right there, I don't know what Darwin Nunez was even doing on the pitch. I couldn't quite figure it out. He's like playing a match of his own when there was no connection, no anything. But I thought it was like kind of a bad thing to throw Ben Doak into a match like this right off the get go. I mean, first match against a clear rival, who's a potential top 4 rival, and I think it was giving him a lot. Now Ben Doak came in this week against Bournemouth. Sure. I mean, but I don't think that was a questionable substitution.
Yeah, I feel like there was an opportunity there for them to bring in, I understand why Darwin comes in. You spent that money on him. You got to go to your bench. You're going to make substitutions. You're probably going to go to him as your first attacker, obviously. As far as Doe coming on for Salah, it was a big shock to me. I didn't really see it coming, and I'm really not surprised with the reaction. So I'll ask you that. Are you frustrated when you see Mo Salah kind of show up the manager and get angry, or are you saying to yourself, I want players like that acting that way on my team?
I guess it's a little bit of both. I want that hunger. I mean, of that I'm mad to get subbed off the pitch right there. But also the same thing. You don't want as much of a. I think it was blown out of proportion by the commentators on TV when when they were, oh, he's doing this, oh, he's ripping off this. I mean, I don't know what superstar in the world is not going to be frustrated for getting subs out right there in a high profile match like this. So if Mo was throwing a fit, okay, I understand legitimately why he was throwing a fit, especially to get subbed out for a 19-year-old kid in a match right there that actually that he still had potential to change.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think that he deserves the right to be frustrated. I also think the manager deserves the right to let him know he's 30 plus years old and it's a different world now. And if this kid offers something to change matches, he's going to play. I don't know it need to happen in the first match of the year.
No.
And that's what really was a shocker to me and a little surprising. So I also think that Jota had one of those matches where he came into it, did everything all preseason to earn being the starter, and then did nothing for the moments on the pitch that, you know, I expect him to start against Bournemouth, but I wouldn't be shocked if Gakpo was back in the false nine in the middle of the pitch and Jota was on the bench and he goes to a more traditional 3 in the midfield.
Oh, I agree, but I think also just in defense of our midfield, we were up against a pretty heavy slotted middle of the pitch right there with them putting 5 out against our 3. I think they basically just swamped our midfield. So I mean, I think a lot of the run of play was broken up before we could do it. That's what we saw after that Chelsea scored the equalizer. I think we saw that almost throughout the rest of the match right there was nobody could keep control of the ball in the middle of the pitch. I don't think it really ever moved that except for a few of the Enzo Fernandez moves. But other than that, it was a dry second half.
Well, it's funny that you said that. It's a good segue. Enzo Fernandez. I think he splits the opinion of a lot of football fans, including, I think, Chelsea fans, Premier League fans, basically everyone but Argentinian fans, because he had an amazing World Cup and that spurned, him being the record signing until Declan Rice became the record signing, until Caicedo became the record signing in England. And I'm sure by the time this podcast ends, Chelsea will probably break the record signing and sign somebody else. But what was your take on Enzo Fernandez? He was named player of the match by both Sky Sports, the media in the stadium, and a third publication, maybe the BBC, all named him player of the match. I thought he was good. I don't know if he was great.
I thought he was good. I thought that Raheem Sterling had a better match than he did. That Raheem Sterling and Reece James connection was fantastic in that match. I mean, I thought they actually came through and communicated well, and they gave us a lot of trouble with that left side.
Yeah, I actually really do agree. So we have a question here from one of our listeners. It says, guys, I want to know why they gave the captain to Virgil van Dijk. So, Brian, I'll let you start with this. What were your thoughts and opinions on Van Dijk being the captain, and would you have made Virgil van Dijk the captain?
I think that this is I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago on the Monday Night podcast about Van Dijk becoming captain. I think it's a stopgap right there before we go there and give Trent the armband. I don't think that Mo is going to be here long enough to have it, because I do still believe that Mo will be gone by next summer. I think that probably summer at the latest right there, he'll be gone. So who else would you give the armband to at the moment? I mean, you could give it to Robbo, but again, you're also showing a player that's having diminished qualities right there. I mean, of course, Van Dijk, with what we saw last year with his diminished qualities, I honestly said, in my opinion, I wanted to give the armband to Ali. I thought that Ali has been our savior in this squad right there for last season, even though we came through and finished where we did at 5th, but we wouldn't get finished anywhere near there without Ali.
Alan Walnut, clearly not only a smart man, he listens to the Monday podcast and he listens to me, because I have talked for about 2.5 years about how statistically you can see Virgil's numbers go down and actually Liverpool's points per match go down when they actually have Virgil as captain. I think part of that is in a lot of those big matches they played would be when Henderson and Milner were on the bench at times. And it led Virgil to have to play against some of the toughest competition as captain. So those stats might be skewed. But I do think he over focuses on it and doesn't focus as much on just running the defense. I personally always like to have the captain be in the midfield, like a strong leading player. If it was Trent, I would understand it. You know, it will be interesting to see what happens as time goes on. You know, Sosablai is the Hungarian captain. Virgil is the Netherlands captain. Robbo's the Scotland captain. Allison has captained Brazil before. You know, you have Trent now as vice captain. So I think there's a lot of leaders in this side. So it'll be interesting to see where they go and what exactly happens as they go forward with that. But it was a great question. And Cecil believes that Allison deserves to be captain and not Van Dijk. And I understand the shout. Doesn't exactly speak English. Not as easy to have your captain on the pitch talking to the referee if he's in between the sticks. So I can kind of understand not putting the armband on a goalkeeper. And I do think Klopp likes having his captain be the voice of management to the players. And I think you have to be able to speak a language that they all understand. And I don't know that Allison does that. So, but I do love the questions. Please keep them coming. We have another one here. Liverpool need a left center back, 2 midfielders, and a right back. What do you think about Endo and other interests? So before we get to Endo, we are going to get there. And Alan wants me to remind everyone that Endo is also the Japanese team captain. So we are just cornering the market on captains across international football. But we're going to go ahead here first. Let's transition here into the transfer market. Obviously, we would be remiss without talking quickly about the crazy saga that we all went through for 72 hours last week. It was on this program Thursday night. We were all excited that we had signed Caicedo, just to find out we didn't. Brian, with the news that we weren't getting the player, were you more frustrated with Brighton, Chelsea, or Liverpool in this process?
Actually, honestly, I'd say it's hard to say be frustrated with any of the three, because ultimately there was the player's decision about whether he wanted to move or not. I do think that there had to be some kind of interest right there from his camp right there to say, "Hey, come and bid for us." But ultimately, the player came there and chose to go to a different squad. I mean, it's happened multiple times to multiple clubs. I mean, again, it's frustrating right there, because I do think that would have solved our number 6 problem for many years. But I mean, and ultimately right there, who could turn down £250,000 a week for 9 years? I mean, it's money.
That was the part that really jumped out at me, to be totally honest. 117 million. That's a lot to turn down. It's a lot to walk away from. Alan says Liverpool screwed up. I don't think they screwed up as much as I think they kind of got screwed or got played. And I do believe the player at some point gave indications that he would come to Liverpool, or they wouldn't have made a $111 million bid and let the manager go out the next morning and talk about it in the press conference. So for that, I believe they thought they had a real shot to steal maybe the best transfer of the transfer window. So before we jump off last match and this transfer, what does this mean for Chelsea? Because they've signed about 850 players, and I'm not sure they got any better. And then they signed this guy, and I worried they just got Mauricio Pochettino a team.
I still think there's problems in that midfield. Yeah, you got Caicedo right there actually as a holder right there, and then I mean, but you still have you still have you're going to have a bunch of players in there that'll be disgruntled right there. That's not going to get matches. Conor Gallagher is a prime example because they already told they're going to hold on to him. I mean, and then now they're going to give up one of their top prospects now to Newcastle. You've got too many players on the pitch there. I mean, it's like that fine, like Goldilocks zone for having that to either have quite enough squad members or too little squad members. I think they're way over the amount of people that they need, and they still don't really have a great forward right now because I mean, I think that there was a good presentation what we saw this week of potential, but I still think that they're weak up top.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. We're gonna have to see what Nicholas Jackson does, but they do need another striker at least. I think the injury to Nkunku really was a big one for them. I think they were going to rely on him and Mudryk to actually change the way that they play offense. Cecil checks back in with Liverpool need to sign a right back and a center back. I'm not so sure a center back is coming anymore after the signing they made today. We'll talk about that in a moment. I think he offers a little bit of a fourth cover. I think Joe Gomez probably offers your cover at right back. And I think that what we end up seeing is another midfield bot, if not two, if any more incomings come. So it'll be interesting to see there. Before we go to the next one, obviously, we talk about Chelsea signing all these players and having a bloated squad. So what do? They go out and sign themselves another player. So they go and get themselves Romeo Lavia. Real quick, because I don't want to beat this one to death, but I want your opinion on it.
It's all about Joe Shields. That's all about Joe Shields. Joe Shields stole that transfer. I mean, if you look at the track record, he was at City, he went to Southampton, now he went to Chelsea right there. I mean, it was the guy had full faith in Lavia, so the kid just came there and took with it. And he thought that that he was second fiddle to Calcedo in our deal, and so he went with somebody who he knows has faith with him. I mean, I feel sorry for the kid because I think that he may have got himself into a little bit of a pickle of being second fiddle at that Chelsea squad because I don't see how he's going to fit in, how he's going to actually outbump Calcedo.
Yeah, I think they're trying to sell him on the fact that they believe he can play the 8. My problem is if you have him and Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez cost them almost 240 million pounds. Where is the kid going to play outside of, and the problem is they're just going to go out and buy the next big thing, and they might already have it, as the Matson kid might be just as good as all these midfielders already, which is kind of crazy. While we're talking about transfers, Richard Hutchinson jumps in with FSG have no ambition. Liverpool Klopp and George Schmacky negotiation structure and transfer dealing isn't good enough to get players into the club. Caicedo 115 million, Bellingham 120 million, and Lavia 58 million. What do you, Brian Shelton, say in response to Richard?
Okay, 58 million is a lot of money for a 19-year-old kid. That was the first thing I said right there. I said, I would say with Lavia, I probably would pay no more than 35 for Lavia. I think that Southampton was trying to go and make profits off of it, and that was enough. Now, Bellingham, obviously we're seeing reports that coming out of Dortmund right there, and that people have been talking about that that they're probably the squad is pretty happy to be rid. That he turned into that more of a circus right there with him there. So I mean, again, it goes back to this. If the players don't want to come, they don't want to come. I mean, you can't go out there and blame FSG. You can't blame the Liverpool scouting network. You can't do anything. If you do the groundwork, but the player still doesn't want to come, there's nothing you can do. It's out of our hands.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the overall platform that they were on, you can't force things to happen. So we make our move for Caicedo. It doesn't work. We then make a last-ditch effort by all accounts to sign Lavia. He decides he'd rather go to Chelsea. Maybe he felt it was second fiddle. Maybe he got an 8-year contract at £100,000 more a week. So we go to Endomania. And I got to tell you, when it first was announced that we were looking at this player, he was a 30-year-old. I won't lie, I was skeptical. I was frustrated. I started reading tweets from actual reporters who cover the Bundesliga and know what has happened over the last 3-4 seasons and where Stuttgart was and what this guy has meant to that club and how well he's played for him. I start reading it. I start reminiscing and looking at some articles from the World Cup when people described him as one of the 5 or 6 breakout players at the World Cup when he played really well for Japan. And it started to make me think, maybe this is the perfect signing when you swing and miss on your $100 million decade midfielder. That let's be honest, we tried to sign 2 of them this summer, in Bellingham and Caicedo, and neither worked out. So you sign a guy to a 2 or 3 year deal who's going to be really hungry, still has some gas in the tank, is described as an absolute running monster, has good defensive stats, and even pops up, scores a goal, offers you a little depth at center back if you need it with some experience. It really sounds like a smart buy.
Yeah, he's a Klopp signing. I mean, he's a utility player. He's able to go through and shift into multiple positions. I mean, you basically consider him, yeah, he's a year older than Fabinho, but he still has the pace that Fabinho lost. I mean, listen to reading reports right there from, like you said, right there from other people throughout the Bundesliga with him. I mean, there's a lot of rave reviews right there for his, his challenges won. I mean, again, he offers a higher goal score ratio than Fabinho did. I mean, why not? I mean, it's a 15 million pound transfer. I mean, it also because it gives you another old head in that midfield right there. That sometimes these younger players need, and we still don't know when Bajatek is actually going to come back and be healthy. So this could actually be a good stopgap until we get him straight. But I do still think that we still need more. I mean, it's one player's not going to actually cover what we lost in that time period.
Yeah, I totally agree. Richard chimes back in with, what about Inacio, Thuram, Kone, Decore, Amrabat, Endo, Pavard? Well, we touched on Endo. We're going to talk some more about him in a minute. We want to get to all your comments because we really appreciate the interaction. Please continue. Like, subscribe, send us messages. If you want to get involved, let us know, or you have feedback for us. We would love to hear what you have to say about the show. I think Kone and Thuram, that ship might have sailed. It was early rumors. I love Thuram as a player. I think once you sign Soboslai and McAllister, you kind of replace your Thuram spot in money. For me, Decore would be a star signing right now. He's exactly what we need. He's Premier League ready. He allows Endo to be more of a depth position player, play some cup matches, off-cycle matches. I don't know that it will happen. I feel like Endo is more the starter, and we'll use Bajatic and maybe Thiago / McAllister in cup matches when we need them that way. Amrabat, Pavard, Inacio. Do you see Liverpool signing any of these players at this point, Brian?
No, Inacio's already gone. He came through sign a new deal with Sporting today. I mean, so he's now got a 60 million pound release clause. That's not going to happen. Pavard right there supposedly has been talking all throughout Italy, and so I don't know if Pavard is going to happen. He's also flirted with Manchester United. I don't think I don't see that happening right there, especially with, I know he wants to leave, but I don't see Bayern letting him go for the cheap. And really for Amarat, I think that's his agents trying to go there and play us against United to try to see who's going to go there and jump first.
Yeah, I kind of agree. So we're Liverpool supporters, so we do get greedy, but let's not get too greedy. We actually are signing a player right now. Let's actually talk about him. So Wataru Endo's defensive stats. overall in the Bundesliga last season, 70 tackles, ranked 15th. Duels won was 6 overall. Successful block passes, 14th. Possessions won in the final third, 12th. And then ball recoveries, 231st. It doesn't actually show his overall running statistics and like how efficient he was over 90 minutes, which I think are actually his best defensive numbers. And also his aerial duels, which are really high, which what makes it so much better when you need him to fill in at center back. So do statistics like this make you more comfortable, less comfortable? How do you rate the Bundesliga overall? And what do you feel it will be like in translation to the Premier League?
I think the Bundesliga right there is actually probably an easier transition for players to move across, except for Timo Werner, but that's a whole different subject. But I think that the pace is similar. I think that the actual tackling is similar. I mean, I think they're a very comparable league. I like the duels won. I think that's something that will help us in our with our as a central defensive midfielder and as a center back right there. I mean, the other stats. I mean, balls recovery. I mean, balls recovery. I mean, that's a decent stat. I mean, to me, I mean, I think that we should be that he's for 15 million pounds. Why not go up for a shout?
Yeah, I understand the signing, and I also understand where supporters are concerned and why they're frustrated. Like, I can understand Liverpool probably shouldn't be signing 30-year-old players in positions of need, but I think it actually makes sense why they make this signature now, because it gives them time to see what they have in Bastich. It gives them time to figure out what the next player looks like. And maybe when the next great, defensive midfielder shows up on the block, they'll be in a position to make a move and the player will sign, unlike, what happened with Caicedo between this time last Thursday and whatever time Sunday it was when he broke my heart. So,
but it's like what you guys were talking about on Monday podcast. This market is so overinflated right now. I mean, how can you actually go and get a good steal of a buy at the moment? I mean, when you're going there and having 19-year-old kids going for 60 million pounds. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not a buyer's market at the moment.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. So I changed the screen to the offensive stats, which are a little surprising to me. Or a little bit more of his stats on the offensive side or on the defensive side. Sorry. Passes completed, 8th overall. Ball recoveries, he's 3rd. Final third passes, he was top 10. Headed clearances, he was 1st. So total tackles, top 10. Really looks like a well-rounded defensive midfielder to me.
Yep, totally agree. I think that's why I say for 15 million pounds right there, it's a good buy.
So before we transition off the transfers, is there any player that you see on the horizon, anything you think might happen after this, or do you think Liverpool is done for the transfer window with still 13 more buying days left in England?
I'm really, really hoping for Decore. I think that Decore right there would actually be a solid signing for us. I think that would pretty much complete our midfield. I don't think, like you said earlier, I don't think we're going to go in for another center half. I think that's done. I mean, as much as I'd like to go out there and have more reinforcements there, I think probably 2 more signings at the most.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe a midfielder comes in. I still hold out hope that we sign a Decore. If we don't, and we go for a more of like a depth kind of another Swiss Army knife midfielder, I would love to see Ryan Gravenberch from Bayern. That's been one of my, big wish list signings all season long. I don't know Bayern will let him go, but they really do need to raise some money. After the Harry Kane purchase, they admit it, they have to sell some players. So if the right offer comes in, and reports are Klopp is really enamored with the player, so I could see him playing both in a pinch in the 6, even though he's more of a 8 and/or player in the double pivot. But I think he would be the perfect player if you really want to play Trent in an inverted midfield position from the right back spot, playing alongside Gravenberch with Soboslai and McAllister in front of him, and then that front 3 running at defenses. It'd be really, really scary.
Yep.
So before we get into it, or let's get into it, I should say, Saturday morning, match number 2, it's Bournemouth at home. What are your thoughts going into this match? Do we go with the same starting lineup? Would you make any tweaks if you're Klopp?
I think we're the starting lineup's not going to be much different. I mean, maybe like you said right there about maybe swapping out the front a little bit right there for Jota to go back for Gapco, maybe. But I think that largely the midfield is probably going to stay the same, and I think that we're going to have, as I said on Monday, more midfield chaos. And I just think that we're having a problem keeping control of the ball. I don't know if we're going to get Endo registered enough time right there to have him play. And I think it's still too soon to actually put him on the pitch to play for us. But yeah, I still see that. I think we're going to have a very open match, kind of like what we saw on last Sunday.
I think the medical happened today, so he might be registered by noon tomorrow, which is the cutoff to play this weekend. So I could see him on the bench. I don't think he'll start. I think he will end up making one tweak, in my opinion. Excuse me. I think he will sit Jota, move Gakpo into the center of the pitch, and maybe start either Jones or Thiago, and maybe reconfigure the midfield. If Thiago's healthy, I could see him start at the 6. It's Bournemouth. He's not going to worry like he needs a big defensive midfielder. I would be worried. I'm always worried when Thiago plays. But I could see Thiago starting. I could see Jones starting. If he does go with the same exact side, I'd be a little shocked because I don't think that was a bell-ringing first match performance that allows you to tell your side that no changes are required a week later, even though you got a point at Stamford Bridge. That makes sense?
That makes perfect sense. I mean, I'd be, like you said, I'd be concerned with Thiago as a number 6 right there, just because of his defensive responsibility is like none. I mean, we watched with frustration most of the last season right there, where he just let shit go by him. I mean, and I'd be fearful with Trent going as the inverted fullback and having that dependence right there with Thiago dropping back a bit right there to keep the defensive stability right. And I think they're going to see a blueprint also of what happened on our left side again, with Robbo go there not being able to make those runs and still not be able to go there to drop back and defend correctly.
David Cosgrove jumps in with, he will do Thiago. Did you see how he was holding him in training? I did not see how he was holding him in training. I wish I had that picture, maybe, depending on how he was holding him. But I do kind of agree. I said it earlier. He made a big point at the end of preseason to talk about how important Thiago was to this side now that Fabinho and Henderson left and Milner, and having an actual veteran leader in the dressing room and helping these lads. You know, he does speak about 150 languages, which allows him to communicate with every single player in the dressing room. So in some ways, you know, Thiago very much is a fold of the overall leadership and fabric of this side. So I could see him starting the first home match of the year. Unfortunately, to Alan's point, I could also see him not making it 35 of those 75 minutes. Because ultimately, very much like Kevin De Bruyne, I feel like it's a Rolls Royce of a talent player that is just breaking down in front of our eyes. But I do think that David Cosgrove is right. I was just literally about to say this. Thiago deserves some respect. He turned down loads of a Saudi move to stick it out with us. That is true. Now, I also think he wants to be a free agent at the end of the season so he can walk for free, which is his right. He has a contract, and he'll go make a lot of money somewhere else, and he'll get to pick where he goes, and it won't be in the middle of the desert. And I do give him credit for staying, and I hope he has a big year because we could use his skills in our midfield because he does things that other than McAllister, none of the other players do.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I don't. It's no disrespect to Thiago. I think that really a lot of his placement inside in our midfield sometimes they're not playing the same exact way that we used to play. I mean, he slows the ball down a lot right there, where we're actually trying to go there up the pace of the ball. So I mean, it's just I guess it's a communication thing that I have my issues with Thiago.
Yeah, I completely understand. There's times where I feel like he's just a little too slow on the ball and he changes our tempo, especially right when he got there. I thought that it kind of slowed us down and it changed certain matches. And I thought that it hurt us in the way we played at times. I also think he was brought in as kind of a savior-esque player that was going to add this new dimension and take like champions to a new level. And I don't think that ever materialized or flourished. And I think that he's kind of lived off a lot of great play at Barcelona and a few, very few, by the way, moments at Bayern Munich. Like the Munich fans weren't unhappy when he left because they just remembered him always hurt and not being able to play. But so I'm going to get you out of here on this. Tell me what the final score will be and tell me how many goals Mo Salah is going to score.
3-2, Mo 2.
3-2, Mo 2. I'm going to be a little bit more bullish than that. I'm going to say that we drub them. I'm going to say it's 5-1. And Mo gets his second career hat trick and goes into double digits against Bournemouth. And they wake up Monday morning thinking to themselves, Mo Salah owns this club. We've only been in the Premier League for 9 seasons, and he has 11 goals against us.
That sounds like some Norwich Suarez shock.
Yeah, it's a little Norwich Luis Suarez moment right there. It'll really kind of scare him. But I think Mo goes out, puts it on him. I think he shows Klopp he wants to play 90 minutes, and it might only take 70 minutes to get the hat trick. And we'll probably see Ben Doak at some point, and probably more than we thought we would see him all year. But I think Mo comes out on a mission. Maybe we give up a goal at some point on a counter or on some broken play, because it's kind of what we do at this point, especially when we take the foot off the gas. But I'm going to say it's a 5-1 comfortable win. And we're back here next Monday night talking about all of this stuff all over again. But don't forget, we will have the fantasy show coming up at 9:00 tonight. So 7 minutes from now, going through match week 1, talking about some of our players that we like, players we didn't, maybe the transfers coming in this week, the transfers going out. We'll also show our teams and show how bad we did. Can't wait for that, of course. And then we'll be back on Friday with the morning coffee show. We're going to do pre and post match shows this weekend before the Bournemouth match, 9:00 Eastern, right after the final whistle. And then, of course, we'll be back on Monday night for the normal Gally Timuchin and Bickler podcast. So, Brian, thank you so much. I want to apologize to the listeners. We've had some audio issues tonight. We've tried to fix things on the fly, but we appreciate all your comments, all your time spent with us tonight. It was a disappointing overall result, but we got a point. We got to get back on that horse, find 3 points against Bournemouth. Anything else, Brian, as we fire off here to the listeners?
Hey, I guess I'll say smash that like button.
There you go. I couldn't have said it better. Smash that like button. Hit subscribe if you're on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook. Check us out on Instagram. Call it Twitter, call it X, call it whatever you want. I'm not sure it works anymore, but we'll keep posting shit on it. We appreciate all your interaction. We appreciate you all following, and we will see you all soon. Up the Reds, and here's to another Bournemouth drubbing. Thanks for listening. We'll
Cheers.
see you soon.